And we're back. Season 3, Episode 3, Codcast. Your host, Matt Pajak, alongside me, Adam Greene, the best writer the Cape Cod Baseball League's ever had. Something to
High
that.
praise.
Not an official title, but unofficially. Great to have you back, Adam. You've been up on the Cape. It's cold. It was supposed to rain. All the games have been played so far as of Tuesday, June 17th. Where have you been? What have you seen? What's kind of the vibe here in the first couple of days of the season?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm just super happy to be out here on the Cape. I mean, I was getting ready for the season to start for months. I was like, got to get down there, and to finally have it, have the games being played is really cool. But you're right, it is super cold. It was like, I think it was maybe touching under 60 degrees on opening day, but I was over in Brewster for opening day. They had YD, and that was a fun game to be at outside of the cold. And then I've been over to Cotuit and Falmouth, and then planning on hitting Chatham later today. So really making the rounds, trying to see everybody on all the rosters, in the first couple of weeks of the season. And it's been great. I love being down here, and the baseball's already been super fun to watch.
Yeah, buzzing like a bee. All you need is a fog delay in Chatham.
Yeah, that will really round out all of the baseball weirdness, I guess, to start the season.
Yeah, there you go. Well, on this episode, we're going to get into Fenway Workout is already tomorrow, which is crazy. And then we're going to get into, kind of some of the names of popping up on these rosters to begin the season and some early performances of note this week on the Cape. Greene, looking forward to that. But yeah, Adam, straight out the chute, on the note of we're 3 games into the Cape season, and tomorrow is the Fenway Workout. I think this is the earliest into the calendar, the Cape calendar, that this thing's ever been done. What do you got on the Fenway Workout? I think there's a lot, if you've been around the Cape, you know what the Fenway Workout's about. If you haven't been around the Cape, why is it so special? How did it start? You just did a great piece that went live on the website. What do you got?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, a lot of people that are really tuned into the Cape know about the importance of Fenway Day, and they know what it stands for and why it's such a big deal. And maybe those who aren't as, watching every game or really enthused by everything that goes on with the Cape League might not be as familiar with it. But uh, what it is basically a showcase for scouts, agents, anybody from major league organizations and some colleges, where every player from the Cape League travels up to Fenway Park, which is the closest major league stadium to the Cape, and each team gets a couple hours to take BP, IO, throwing programs, and kind of just scouts get to watch and interact with players and see what their character makeup is, what skills they have, what makes them tick, to kind of get a full rundown on each player. And that's a really valuable day for these scouts, because there's so many things that you cannot pick up on just from going down to, a Harwich or a Brewster and watching a game and watching a kid play first or second base or pitch. There's so many things that you're not able to really pick up on until you go talk to that kid or you watch his mechanics and you get to see him up close. So that's what Fenway Day is really valuable for. And a little history behind Fenway Day is I want to mention I spoke to the Yankees and the Red Sox Northeast area scouts, Matt Hyde with the Yankees, and Ray Fagnant with the Red Sox. Both fantastic guys. Really appreciated the chance to meet and interact with them. But they kind of informed me that Fenway Day is not the same as it always has been. So what that event looked like years and years back was the Red Sox would hand pick a select number of players from the Cape League and invite them to Fenway, and those would be the only players that would be working out. Those would be the only players traveling up there. So there's been a complete shift in the ideology of Fenway Day, the Fenway Day workouts over the last couple of years. And Matt and Ray put a team together, and they kind of made Fenway Day what it is today. and now it includes everybody from the Cape, so nobody's not traveling. Everybody has a chance to go up there. Has a chance to meet and interact with the scouts and show what they're made of. So it was cool hearing the history behind that and kind of the transformation it's undergone over the last couple of years.
Yeah, the Fenway Day, I mean, that's a long-standing tradition on the Cape. You know, as you mentioned, I remember back when I was working under Commissioner Gallup back in 2015, you know, handling the roster transactions coming in and out every day. We went up to that Fenway Workout Day, and I believe it was Steve Sanders at the time was kind of running point on, I think, like the logistical side of things as the assistant scouting director for the Red Sox. He's now a senior vice president and assistant general manager for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the guy who was working under him as, I think, like a scouting associate, or I'm not, amateur scouting assistant, not sure what the title was at the time, and was actually, you know, in charge of making sure that only, you know, certain cars and buses got in to park where they were supposed to park, was Paul Taboni, who's now a senior vice president and assistant general manager for the Boston Red Sox. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy that, you know, the thing about the Cape is, in all these different places that you go and all these different things that you do, it's such a jumping off point for so many different people. And, yeah, here these guys were just a very like foundational part of, you know, the Cape Workout Day. And, you know, they've got two of the highest titles in all of professional baseball front offices now. So, it's a really cool experience. I know that in the past it's been, or at least in the past couple of years, it's been a thing of like, when do we put this thing on the calendar so that we get the most players there? With how, you know, transitory the rosters have become in this new age of summer ball. I think they put it in a perfect time to get as many good players there as possible. You know, we've got 8 teams in Omaha. They're starting to thin out there. You know, there's a lot of players that are showing up to the Cape right now. I think this is a good transition. There's a lot of big names showing up early onto the Cape. Adam,
Yeah,
who did you see this weekend?
this weekend. Oh man, I could go on and on about the rosters right now. The players are showing out early, but right before I want to get into that, I don't want to forget the last note I have on Fenway Day is you're right. The timing is almost perfect this year. I think the coaches really appreciate that one day off to kind of reset after the first 3 or 4 days of games. And the last thing I wanted to touch on was kind of just the fact that I mentioned it has undergone a transformation over the last couple of years. This has been like over decades, so I wanted to clarify that. But going back to what you asked me, who did I see this weekend? I was able to watch some great baseball, and one of the top performances I think we have to start on was on opening day. Jake McCoy of South Carolina, he started. He got the opening day nod for Harwich, and he had just a dominant outing. He went 4 innings, only allowed 3 hits, a run, was not earned. But the really cool aspect of this story, and there's been a couple of our writers and our league reporters that have touched on this on our social medias, but McCoy donates $23 for every strikeout he records to the Purple Heart Homes Foundation, and he struck out 10 people that game. Or, yeah, it was 10 strikeouts. So that's a $230 donation on his end, and that is also why he wears the number 23. So I just thought that was a really cool story. That was the first thing that came to mind when you asked me who did I see this weekend. So it was really awesome watching that unfold. And then, of course, on opening day, it was really cool to see Josiah Ragsdale from BC come up for Brewster in a really high leverage situation. Bases loaded, 2 outs, Brewster down 2-1. It was getting dark. They don't have lights in Brewster, so they were running out of time. And he knocked one right over the shortstop and second baseman's heads, right into center field. And he got that 2 RBI knock, put Brewster ahead. So that was a cool moment. And then, of course, I remember back on our last episode when we were doing the season previews, I wanted to touch on Andrew Williamson from UCF. He's with Hyannis. He's here for opening day. And we were kind of talking about how Hyannis has some sky high expectations for him. first homer of the Cape League season, and he has the second highest OPS through 3 games. Of course, 3 games, it's a small sample size, but he's entering today with an 1163 OPS. So that's really exactly what Hyannis wanted to see when they set those expectations for him.
Yeah, and Hyannis is, they got a lot of really big names in there early. Obviously a couple guys you just touched on heading up to Boston for that Fenway workout day. I'm seeing Andrew Williamson obviously off to a good start. Miles Bailey is in from Florida State, might have some of the biggest power on the entire Cape. Chris Rembert from Auburn is in as well. Some more big names kind of just going through here. Carson Tinney from previously with Notre Dame, now in the transfer portal with the do not contact tag. So he knows where he's going. We don't know where he's going yet. He homered on Sunday. That's a big name for the next class, especially as catcher with power who hit. Daniel Cuvier's back, 42 career home runs in 2 seasons at Miami. I think you touched on him in the season preview. He's out there. I mean, if it's not Miles Bailey, then it's Daniel Cuvier for the biggest power on the Cape. Just kind of run it through Bourne. Justin LeBron's there. If you have an opportunity to get out and see Bourne at some point this month, like Alabama shortstop, early favorite to be a top 10 pick next year. Hits, defense shortstop. That's a really fun one. Noah Franco's also in Bourne from TCU. Jake Hanley is in Chatham right now. He tripled on Sunday. He was just named a finalist for a Gold Glove Award. He's big time power left-handed bat at Indiana. Henry Ford's in. He's sophomore eligible. 362 at UVA this spring. Power numbers were a little down from 2024, but he is currently 73rd rated draft prospect on MLB Pipeline for this upcoming draft. We'll see what happens, how that shakes out. Ace Reese recently got an invite to USA Baseball training camp for the college national team in July from Mississippi State. That's a big name. The list just kind of goes on and on. Chris Hacopian at YD, kind of going into YD, hit 375 at Maryland this year. He punches 7% of the time. That might be, what some of the best plate discipline and contact skills on the Cape this summer. Chris Hacopian, make sure you go see him. He was their primary shortstop this year, hit 14 home runs, walked a ton. Nolan Traeger's in there, catcher from TCU. So, I mean, it's just loaded. Joey Volchko's back from last year. Adam, what do you got on Joey Volchko?
Yeah, so he was I actually had a quick conversation. I'm walking down the third base line at Cotuit the other day. He's excited to be back, and he's kind of looking forward to getting another chance to play in front of that Lowell Park crowd, one of the best fields on the Cape. So I know you had this in the notes, but when you have a spring into the summer, kind of like he did, where he wasn't, where the arsenal wasn't working like you thought it would or he wanted to, it's good to get back in the rhythm of things, come up to the Cape and reset, work with that coaching staff that you had such a great relationship last year. So I think it'll be really beneficial to see what he can do back in the second summer. But I wanted to go back to a couple of the names that you just mentioned. Chris Hacopian, like you mentioned, some of the best plate discipline on the Cape, and early eye test. I might say he has one of the best gloves on the Cape. He's made a couple of ridiculous plays over the last 2 days. So that's been pretty fun to watch. And I'm actually heading to Chatham tonight. And one of the main reasons is because they're playing Hyannis, and I need to see Miles Bailey play live. I'm just waiting for him to hit that first homer because I know it's going to go 700 feet or whatever. So that's going to be really fun when he finally connects with one. But a couple other names that I think should be spotlighted is Luke Pettit, Andy's son. Andy Pettit with the Yankees. He is pitching for Orleans. He's at Dallas Baptist, and he recorded his first Cape League save last night. So that's a cool story. Obviously, they have the Luke sons. They have Luke Pettit and Luke Nixon over there in Orleans. So that's going to be something fun to watch. And also Haiden Leffew with Brewster. He's at school at Wake Forest, but this is his second summer on the Cape. Last summer he was with Harwich. This summer he's with Brewster. he got credit for the win on opening day. He pitched those last couple innings to hold YD to just one hit over the last 3 innings. So that was a really impressive performance. One of the things I really enjoy watching is when kids come back for their second summer, but they're with another team. I like to see how they gel with a new coaching staff, gel with new teammates, because it's every team, as you know, is so different that when you spend a summer, with Harwich, it might not be the easiest thing to just make that jump to Brewster because you're kind of learning a whole new system, a whole new routine. But it was really encouraging to see him be pitching like he was. And then the last note I have as a Red Sox fan, this kind of pains me to say, but we're just coming off the news of the Raffy Devers trade to San Francisco. Kyle Harrison involved in that trade. His brother, Bear Connor Harrison, his nickname's Bear, with Texas A&M, is already looking like a great player for Falmouth. Falmouth had a really exciting game on opening day. Unfortunately, they dropped the second one to Brewster in the 9th inning, but he's looking like Bear Harrison is looking like he's going to be one of the best hitters on the Cape pretty early on.
Yeah, it just feels like for the first time in maybe in a couple of years, and I think maybe it's a combination of the players coming in and being available and getting to the Cape. And then I think it's also going to be a really strong college crop. I think this past year is 2025 draft that we're getting ready for. It's not the most exciting or deep class from a college position player standpoint. So it's kind of refreshing to get a whole bunch of names to be buzzing about. This is kind of a flavor for everyone, if you will, from a prospect standpoint. Now, I do want to make sure that we're talking about two arms from Chatham, both University of Georgia, both had really impressive Cape debuts this past weekend. Let's start with JT Quinn. Adam, do you have anything on JT Quinn? Because I got a whole lot.
Yeah, this is a guy that I'm gonna head into UGA for the fall, so I'm really gonna have to up my knowledge with these Chatham arms. But man, they've looked impressive through the first weekend of play. I was getting texts left and right about Nate Taylor yesterday, but I know we're on JT Quinn right now to tied for the league lead in strikeouts, went 5 innings. So that just a dominant performance right there. And I think it's gonna be if you have that 1-2 punch at the front of the Chatham rotation, they're going to be dangerous with those two UGA guys. And UGA has a couple of pitchers around the Cape. They have some with Wareham. So I'll let you know. I'm going to let you share what you got on Quinn and Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, Quinn was the first arm out, I believe, for Chatham on Saturday. 5 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 10 punches. 6-pitch guys, big spin on the breaker. Fastball's been up to 97 this spring. I mean, he smells like a first-round prospect. Prototypical pitcher's build. He's 6'6", 214. This spring, he punched 49 in 36 innings with a 2.75 ERA. It's kind of a unique look because he's tall, but he's also got a really high release point. But what's really interesting about him is that he's actually draft eligible this year. And you're probably wondering, well, what is this guy doing pitching on the Cape if he was just at Georgia and, he pitched as well as he did? First 2 years at Ole Miss were a little hot and cold. After his sophomore year at Ole Miss, he had a 9 ERA. Portaled his way over to Georgia, and who knows what the expectation was for JT Quinn at this point, I guess, in his baseball journey. But he's on the Cape, which is awesome for Cape fans. It's awesome for Chatham fans. Make sure you go out and see him because it's big stuff. Again, 6 pitches, but I mean, he could pitch himself into some money here in the next couple of weeks ahead of the draft in July, which I think is, kind of the beauty of the Cape and kind of the beauty of, where we're at in college baseball is that, it used to be very predictable. You could watch these guys, kind of ascend from freshman to sophomore to junior. All that guy's a draft prospect. Now they kind of pop out of the woodwork because some of these guys are getting opportunities. Some of these guys aren't. And, obviously no better place to kind of make your mark than up on the Cape. His college teammate from this year, who is not draft eligible, who will be a big name if you ask me. You were getting texts about him. I'm going to let you kind of intro this one. Nate Taylor's 4 perfect innings yesterday.
Yeah, he was something else pitching over there with Chatham. I think they were in Wareham, I believe. I unfortunately was down in Falmouth, so I didn't get to watch him live. But he went 4 innings, no hits, no runs, 10 Ks. He looked fantastic. He had everything working. With Wareham's pretty prolific offense so early in the season, it was, you know, I was pretty shocked to see the numbers he was putting up. But again, he was up to 97, and that curveball is really something. I mean, if you're sitting on that fastball and he drops that in, yeah, you have no chance. So um, I think he's going to be one of the most interesting prospects to watch this summer. We were just harping on how great that 1-2 punch was, but the entire Chatham rotation is looking great so far. I know that's been their strength. So Nate Taylor, Georgia, I really think I'm going to enjoy watching these UGA kids as the season progresses.
Yeah, circle that one. Go see him this week. Next time he throws, like you said, he punched 10, didn't give up any hits, didn't give up any walks. Up to 97 this spring with big spin. You mentioned the spin. Punched 17 and 8 1/3 relief innings. I went back and I looked at his stats from the spring, and we talked about a bunch of guys who didn't have but like 8, 9, 10 innings this spring that are supposed to come to the Cape and pitch. He's a guy who had 8 1/3 in relief, and he was very successful. 17 strikeouts, just 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks. So it's not even like it was a control thing. Nate Taylor put a star next to his name, 2 stars, 3 stars. That looks like an early favorite up here on the Cape. So, yeah, really, really a whole lot to talk about after just 3 days, and we got a Fenway workout coming tomorrow. So,
Oh, you know what? I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this crazy stat that I was when I heard it, I was like, that can't be true. That's not a real thing. But no, it's very true. The second day of the season, Cotuit walked off. Who are they playing? Why can't I remember? They were playing Wareham, the second game of the season. They walked off 2-1 in extra innings. They won it in I believe it was like the bottom of the 11th, and that was Cotuit's first, or it might have been the bottom of the 10th. That was Cotuit's first walk-off win in extra innings since 1999. That I mean, my mind was blown, but I guess when I kind of rationalize it, Cotuit, they don't have lights. If they get deep into games, they might call those for light. So when I heard that stat, I was shocked. But shout out Case Sanderson, he walked it off. He was the hero that night. And I had a great conversation with the 2024 Thurman Munson batting champion, Jared Advincula, before the game. Great kid, really stood out on the Cape last season. Hit, I believe, 392 to win the batting title. And he was kind of telling me about how he had a rough first day of the season, was 0 for 4, wasn't on base. So it was a tough start. The next 2 games, couple knocks. I think he's up to 4 hits and a couple extra base hits too. So he's right back on track. He's doing exactly what he did last summer, and he's just continues to build his resume as one of the better college prospects around the Cape, or I guess around baseball in general.
that's a great note. And I believe he was at Cal this past year.
Yeah, I believe he's in the portal with a do not contact or that tag. So it'll be something to keep an eye on, see where he's heading. But for now, we get to watch him and get to it.
Yeah, it's just a waterfall of names right now. It's just a waterfall of really talented baseball players that are swinging wood right now up on the Cape. To your point, more likely to see a tie in Cotuit than a walk off.
Exactly.
Just a couple odds and ends here before we sign off. Some early performances of note. Michael O'Shaughnessy, he's out of the chute pretty hot for Orleans. Davidson, third baseman, draft eligible. Hit 17 home runs with almost a 1,200 OPS this spring at Davidson. So some mid-major love there. I think he's hitting over 400 in the early going here. Cade Lewis is another one who's off to a good start for Bourne. It's Wake Forest. He hit 376 this spring at Wake in a full season. He should be a fun one to watch all summer. John, I believe it's LeGrand. I could be wrong. Could be Lake Grande. Either or. St. John's hit 368 this spring. Another mid-major guy, stole 33 bags. He's hitting leadoff for Bourne. So that's exciting. And then a little love for an arm, TJ Coates from Nebraska. That's another one. Not too dissimilar from some of the names we mentioned in the last episode. Not too dissimilar from Nate Taylor. He only had 11 innings this spring at Nebraska. He threw 5 scoreless with 7 punches against Harwich on Monday. So that's pretty good. And that took his innings count for the year up to by like 150%. So, which is crazy. So it's fun when you see some of these names early on having success, especially knowing that their inning load in the spring was minimal, next to none, because they should hang around for a bit. Adam, anything you want to tie up? Anything you want to shout out? You said you were at Captain Parker's for some clam chowder this weekend.
Yeah, shout out to all the dads. We're a couple days past Father's Day. Got my dad was able to come down, watch the baseball with me. And I know mentioned Nolan Traeger earlier in the episode. His dad was in Brewster for opening day. It was a great time meeting him. Really excited to see what he can do with Whitey this summer. A couple other notes though. Speaking of opening day, I know we mentioned it earlier in the episode. The weather was terrible. It was pouring earlier that morning. It was freezing. So just a huge shout out to everyone who worked on the fields, because there was a real chance earlier that morning. I was thinking, I don't know if we're going to get the games in. And, we're playing at high school fields. We don't have multi-million-dollar facilities. So I was really impressed by all the work that everyone did on the fields. And as you mentioned, no games have been missed. We are all caught up to date through the first couple days of the season. And of course, Fenway Day tomorrow. Stay tuned for all the content coming from that. And I'd mentioned it's one of the biggest days for scouts. And when you have kids from all over the Cape and all over the country at different schools that are on different innings limits, on different plans, these managers around the Cape do such a great job understanding what everybody needs and what's best for them. And they really have these players' best interests in mind. So they know what they're doing. They're the best around. So it's going to be another fun summer of Cape League baseball.
Yeah, the calendar may say June, but the weather says April. So if you're coming from off Cape,
let's get that fixed.
Yeah, let's get that fixed. If you're coming from off Cape, make sure you pack a hoodie, a rain jacket. Make sure you're ready for some baseball it's still humid, cold and humid weather. And hopefully that turns here shortly and we have summer up in New England, because no better time of the year than summer in New England. But for Adam Greene, this has been Matt Pajak. This has been the Codcast, Season 3, Episode 3.